Jake Claver's team is interviewing the Kwok brothers, talking about $1,000 XRP and XRP's future. I want to go ahead and play the entire clip and give you additional context. We also have some additional XRP related news and information. Let's start here, guys. This video should come out on Saturday. It is my birthday today. I am 41. Just want to thank you so much for all the support. I couldn't do any of this without you. It's just been a true honor to be on this journey with you. And what else can I say, man? Just thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, if it comes out on a Sunday, my birthday was yesterday. Oh, good, guys. I'm making so much content right now. I don't know what's coming out when. We're trying to get it out as fast and quickly as I can. I don't know if I can scale to 4 videos a day, but you know, you guys are just loving all the content. Let's go.
Exchange, you give an XRP price prediction of $1,000, I believe, by 2030. To your point of, this lawsuit being over, XRP has performed really well this bull market cycle. It's been one of the leading altcoins. Do you have a price prediction for this cycle that you can share? What are you guys thinking?
Not for this cycle in particular. I think, that's maybe something that, well, I guess we're still formulating, but, can release that.
Oh, he was hoping that they would say, $1,000 this cycle. So they'd be like, oh, you're like us, right? You're telling the entire public in the world, we're going to $750 or $1,000 in the next few months. Oh, bummer. You're not going to admit that too?
Eventually. But I think for us, one of the big things is, having that institutional adoption come into the space, both in terms of the technology, but then also in terms of the investment side. A lot of funds are looking now to actually deploy capital into different tokens. And one of the big drivers, obviously, of token price is not only retail excitement, which has obviously driven a lot of the excitement around XRP and around other tokens, but also on the institutional side. So making sure that funds can actually, number one, invest in tokens other than Bitcoin and Ethereum. And I think a lot of the legal teams inside those funds, well, not think, but know, a lot of those legal teams are now looking at ways that they can actually deploy capital into other tokens. And that's going to obviously create a huge inflow of new capital. So, getting the mandates updated internally, making sure that legal then approves investments in these different products is going to all be huge positive catalysts. Because right now, you turn on TV and you see on Bloomberg or CNBC, everyone's just talking about Bitcoin and Ethereum. Those are pretty much the only 2 tokens that anyone really talks about. Sometimes they'll talk about Solana, but I think what we're going to start to see is them actually talking about other tokens like XRP big time, because those are ones that, you just can't ignore. And obviously now the SEC lawsuit has been, removed essentially from all of their, screens. That's something they don't have to worry about. And they can actually now start to really talk about it, but then also put money behind those words. And I think that's going to be another massive tailwind for XRP and for other altcoins as well. I think as well, we're going to start to see developers take note of that. And obviously developer activity very closely follows token price as well.
Yes.
And so when the token starts to move up in a big way, developers also start to come and follow that.
Okay, so because of the lawsuit, developers really were unsure about coming and building on the XRP ledger because they didn't know if XRP was going to make it out of it. If XRP was considered a security, basically Ripple's whole entire business would be gone, because when you're doing payments and if it's considered a security, there's so much reporting that has to be done every transaction. And that would just make it impossible. It would ruin the entire use case. And so now that the case is behind and you get the EVM sidechain that just launched, you're getting a flood of new development. This is extremely important. If we want to have new people coming into the space, new ideas, new capabilities, even new things that we're not even thinking about, new capabilities for the XRP ledger, we need these young, beautiful minds to come in and start building out the future of this technology. And we are starting to see a rush of that. That is so important because every single one of those projects are going to require XRP, right? Or RLUSD or XRP as the transaction. If we are being able to lock up XRP, reducing the circulating supply, could you imagine if we could start massively reducing the circulating supply, if there's not enough XRP left on exchanges? We do know from Jake Claver and some other analysts, they'd say that there's only probably 1.5 to 3.5 billion XRP left on exchanges actually available for people to buy. You bring in these institutions that need to fund these spot ETFs with XRP, you start to look around wondering, where is the rest of the XRP? It's in Ripple's escrow. It's in institutional and yours and mine wallet. And people are not going to let that XRP go for $5 or $10. Their price would need to dramatically be higher. And this is where we could get a huge price crunch and increase for the XRP ledger. Man, there's so many forces coming together right now that a lot of people aren't paying attention to. And you can see, like, I am just trying to sit in my seat, sitting still. It is impossible. I'm so jacked up. I'm so pumped up, and I cannot wait to see how the next few months unfold, guys. It is, woo!
So token price is obviously a really important thing that I think, blockchains don't always want to necessarily admit they focus on, but ultimately they have to focus on it, because a token that's, at all-time lows is never going to obviously reflect well on the technology. People see that and they see a chart that's just basically crashed all the way down, like a lot of the new launches that a lot of new layer ones and their tokens have seen. It's literally just like a chart that just goes straight down and plateaus basically and tends towards zero. And that's obviously just not a good look for the blockchain, but also developers coming in. They don't want to, they don't want to see that. And I think, obviously you mentioned XRP has performed so well this year. It's one of the top performing coins this year. And that's obviously given rise to a lot of people building products around XRP, whether it's staking, for example, whether it's, all sorts of services. They're looking to actually capitalize on the momentum that's around XRP and that really strong community. And that's obviously a result of the token.
This guy doesn't look very happy. I'm not sure, like, maybe these guys came to do an interview with their channel and Jake wasn't there. I'd imagine, like, this gentleman here is Jake's assistant. Really nice guy, don't get me wrong. Maybe they were expecting to be interviewed by Jake, but all good. Love getting the information out. Just wanted to point that out. This is something that I noticed. Maybe it's nothing, but you tell me. 1,000 XRP, remember this gentleman and his brother were on this live news program on the, it looked like the stock exchange floor, and he predicted a 1,000 XRP by 2030. What does that actually look like with the circulating supply? Just wanted to get some additional information on this, right? So price estimates. So there are analysts that predict XRP is going to $4 to $7 by 2030. There's the typically bullish price analysts say $10 to $50, and then the hyper bullish, people say $900 to $4,800 to $13. What? Who said that? That's some crazy stuff. $1,000 XRP valued scenarios 2030. It talks a little bit here like, I think it read like, what is $1,000 XRP at these levels? And so this would be, if you had 1,000 XRP, if it was $7, you'd have $7 grand, $20, you have 20,000. If it went to if it went to $1,000, you'd have $1 million, right? For every 1,000 XRP at $1,000, it's $1 million. So if you have 5,000 or 10,000 XRP, you'd be looking at 5 to 10 million. And don't get me wrong, that is nothing to that is a lot of money to a lot of people. And, I know we all have dreams and goals, and we see some of these celebrities and billionaires living in these yachts and these big homes. But realistically, if you can support your family, you can have a good life. Maybe you could stop working that stressful job that is getting you nowhere, and you could just focus on being you for once. I think that's what a lot of people are looking to do. Chase what their dreams are instead of chasing somebody else's. And that is why, I've changed my whole life to be here, to go through all this, YouTube stuff. I couldn't do any of this without your support. So just thank you guys so much, man. This is like my dreams, chasing my dreams. So thank you. Bitcoin for the last decade has been like sitting through all the commercials in a movie before it starts. Usually I've already eaten most of the popcorn by the time the movie starts. The real show starts soon. I will tell you a story from my past, right? Because when I hear this description, this is what I think about. So if you remember, old school movie theaters are not like the ones today where you kind of have the seats that recline. They were, you had a seat and it was pretty close to the next person next to you, and there was not a lot of space in between. And so in the Bay Area, in San Jose, there was these really big movie houses with giant screens, but they had rows of like 100 seats, right? And we went to see Titanic, and we sat in the very middle of the movie. And for some reason, I was like, I'm gonna drink the biggest Coke in the world before the movie started. I had to sit through the entire Titanic movie having to pee. And I did not want to I had to go through 50 people this way or 50 people that way. That was the most stressful movie I have ever seen in my life. There was water everywhere and it was just not good. I don't know why I shared that story with you, but it came to my mind, and I thought, I'm sure we all have some stories like that. Let's play this.
SIBO is building when it comes to digital assets. We're talking about Bitcoin and Ether now. But where are you looking outside of the products that you are already offering and the ones that you are waiting regulatory approval on, like this one?
Yeah, you can imagine that when we get, I'm going to be optimistic here, when we get regulatory approval, this methodology has application to additional products as well. You might think Ripple, Solana, name your underlying token. This could be extensible to other digital assets. It could also be extensible to other types of assets as well. So, we're trying to just get these first two over the line, and I think you'll see us innovate quite quickly.
See, like Solana, has really good technology. It's very cheap to use. Institutions are going to be interested, but like 90% of the transactions on Solana are meme coin related. And I think when you take a look back at 2024 and 2025, you're going to see tens of billions of dollars of retail investor money lost to scams on Solana. It is one of the most scam chains. And if you're a financial institution, do you want to be connected to that right now? I think they're really going to have to clean up the act around Solana before institutions really take it seriously. But it is awful. Like, I won't even invest in a lot of Solana projects right now. I am invested in some, but I try to stay away from as many meme coins as I can because 99.9% of them go to zero and billions of dollars have been lost. All right, Charlene Pham, she is the leader at the CFTC. She's been crypto friendly. She's been in that role for a few years now. I think since the Trump administration, she got put into the top spot, but she's been at like Ripple. She's met with Brad. She's met with the team. I really like Caroline Pham. She's one of the good regulators out here in the space.
So the only way to solve this, I've said, is that you have to Uberize crypto. You have to massively scale it and have massive adoption so that it is politically untenable to take away people's Bitcoins. Look at TikTok. They passed a law to ban TikTok and you can't do it. You're gonna pry TikTok from like Americans' cold, like dead hands. The same thing with Uber, right? I mean, they came after Uber, but Uber was so disruptive and transformative and you couldn't ban Uber. So you gotta Uberize it. What's the fastest way to Uberize crypto? A Bitcoin in every brokerage account.
Wow, interesting. All right, here's a clip. I think this is a Paul Barron interview with the guy from Tucrium, Sal Galberte. And I don't know, I thought this was something to show you.
Biggest XRP catalyst that you think will happen? I mean, the banking license, one, sure, for Ripple. Obviously, we've already seen quite a few, but there's also involvement in potentially a SWIFT movement in terms of cross-border payments. What would be your catalyst that you think would move the market?
I think those are both catalysts. I think that it's hard to say if they get approved as a bank and then announce they're not going to sell any more XRP onto the market because they want to capitalize the bank. I think that would be an enormous disc for price. That's gigantic. But then I think as SWIFT breaks down and
Okay, really quickly, what he said there is that it would be if Ripple becomes a bank and they decide to seed the bank with the escrow money, that yada, yada, yada. But like that separates the thinking with the community, right? Because there's a lot of community that believe the escrowed XRP is already spoken for. So this wouldn't make sense to have the community that believes that. Now, I get that that would be a pro move and it would help XRP holders because it would be even more of a scarce asset, but I just don't think it's probable, right? You're already seeing at least 300 million XRP going out every single month. Like for Ripple to just stop all of that, I just don't see it happening personally. I'm on the side that doesn't agree with what he's saying here.
ISO 222, I think that they're not projecting SWIFT to use it for a few years yet to be totally compliant with that. Whereas I think that when Ripple flips all the switches and all these NDAs they talk about come alive, and when you start seeing banks announce, we did this much on the blockchain ledger in terms of moving your money, and we did this much on SWIFT, and the SWIFT is going down and blockchain's going up. I think that's a big deal. And there's another point to be made here for the economy as a whole. Most people don't understand that banks have to keep capital in both places. If you want to send money from Miami to Tokyo, okay, banks have to have money in Tokyo and money in Miami under the current system. That all goes away. All that capital is going to be freed up with the blockchain. That's going to burnish the bank's balance sheets even more. But more so, they're going to be able to loan money. They're going to be able to finance their trading desks. It's going to open up so much capital to economic growth in general around the globe. It's a wonderful thing. The blockchain is literally going to open up value because it's going to unlock a lot of frozen money on the bank's balance sheets. And that's really important. Nobody seems...
What am I watching? The guy is just doing hand signals the whole time. Okay. So Sal Galberte probably, listen, if you're going to do live interviews and you're going to go and you're going to give information, the information, like if you don't know something, you say you don't know. You don't just make up facts or you don't just make up things for people because there are a lot of people listening. This is Paul Barron's network. Paul probably should have corrected him on this, right? Because he said that SWIFT, right? Let me go back here.
ISO 222, I think that they're not projecting Swift to use it for a few years yet.
They're not projecting Swift to use it for a few years now. This interview was like a few months ago. Swift is currently using ISO 220022 for a significant and rapidly growing portion of its payments. As of May 2025, about 41.2% of cross-border payments in Swift were being sent by ISO. Who you follow and who you get information from is vitally important. That is something that should not have happened. It should have been edited out of the interview because that is very, very misleading. Just to give you some additional context on this, percentage of payments as of May 2025, 41%. Throughout 2025, anticipated to ramp up to 57% mid-year, 74% quarter three, and up to 86% by the November deadline. ISO payments on Swift will be 86% by this November, which is 3 months away. That is an unfortunate clip. Here is something about XRP and charting. Let me go and play it.
At XRP. And of course, XRP, I did a video on this. I believe it was I think it was about 4 days ago. It might've been this last weekend on my channel here on YouTube. And basically we talked about a possible breakout right here. This was on this day. I did the video on this day because I saw this little breakout. And this is actually a bullish sign. As long as you don't trade back below this zone, basically back below 275, this is a breakout and you would expect this to continue to rise. There'll be a little bit of resistance around 312. You can see this pivot low to this pivot high here. But really, I wouldn't be shocked if we go all the way back to 330 to 335 right up here. Now, again, as we always do, we have to look at both sides. A good technician is looking at the upside, but also the downside. Where does the pattern fail? Any close below 275 at XRP. And of course, XRP.
All right, a few other things I just want to show you here. This is a new clip. Let me just show you this last new clip here. This gentleman has always been pushing Ripple and XRP in the background. Let me play it.
Yeah, no, I am a fan of Bitcoin. I think it's going to rally. You know, it's a real asset. It is going to have real value in the future. The challenge is it doesn't transact. It doesn't solve the real world problems. There's other blockchain for that, but I think that Bitcoin is positioned well. It's just going to probably cool off for a second as real world applications come out here and new technology.
And I think what we haven't seen yet that I still think we will eventually see is a separation of wheat and chaff of, you know, what are the assets, how are these technologies being used to solve real problems that have real demand versus ones, you know, I'll pick on Dogecoin.
Problems that solve real demand, those are going to be the cryptocurrencies and solutions that stay for generations. The ones that are not solving anything and that are just there for hype, those will eventually go to nothing. I'll see you next time, guys. Thank you so much. Have a fantastic weekend. Appreciate your support. Aloha.